in a sense, the Omnibus has created a regulatory vacuum mostly because of the scope changes. If you descope, for instance, from the CSRD 42,000 companies throughout Europe, that leaves a vacuum. and of course, politicians can, I think, argue in whatever direction based on their political beliefs, but it is clear that this heavy descoping leaves a vacuum. And now it is up to markets as well as responsible business practices to fill these gaps by policymakers. And I think this is also what sets the agenda for the coming year, right? Markets have moved on. We see, in a sense, a mismatch between what politicians decide and what markets demand, because market demand, for instance, also information. Investors demand information, banks demand information, business partners demand information. So this was the final trilogue deal that came out. Remember, for these trilogue deals, you have two co-legislators, the Parliament and the Council, whereas the Commission is not an official co-legislator. The Commission is an expert facilitator advisor in these trilogue negotiations. What we see was at the end maybe not that surprising, because the co-legislators were pretty aligned, I would say, on most of the things. The lower CSRD threshold, kind of when compared to the Parliament, so of now 1,000 full-time employees, does not make that much of a difference. We calculated this. It is basically a difference between 92% scope reduction and 90% scope reduction, both, of course, fully unacceptable. So in that sense, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. Politically speaking, of course, to some companies, it will make a difference. There is a review clause on the scope. I think that is important to say. That's also something that came a bit as a surprise, so something that must have been agreed during the trilogue negotiations. This review clause will revisit the scope in 2029, particularly of the CSRD, and then later on also of the CSDDD. We will need to see. This is not that far down the road, so we talk about 3-4 years here at the end until these processes are opened up again. So there is kind of a likelihood that scope might be adjusted again. Climate transition plans was, of course, disappointing. Here, the Parliament really kind of pushed it through. But remember, the reporting obligations in CSRD still exist. What has been deleted is everything in CSDDD, which were mostly the behavioral clarifications around climate transition plans, and also the legal obligation to implement these plans. Risk-based approach on due diligence, here, again, the Parliament kind of, I think, kept the upper hand, but there are lots of exceptions, for instance, when several adverse impacts are included. So in that sense, it is, of course, a risk-based approach with quite a bit of quite a bit of downsides also. So I think it is not what a lot of people also had hoped for. And then civil liability was scrapped. This is, of course, not a simplification at all. Let's keep that in mind. If you exchange one EU-wide civil liability regime against 27 liability regimes, this is, of course, doesn't simplify anything. We also calculated in a paper how many companies remain in scope. What you see here are very conservative calculations based on the assumptions that all subsidiaries report. In reality, we would assume that only 30% of subsidiaries report. This leaves Germany still with the largest chunk, around 1,600 companies. But you also see smaller EU member states for which I would argue by and large the CSRD then actually is no longer relevant, because if you have 4, 8 or 10 companies in scope, then of course, well, you know what that means. Also, I think there are challenges here for identifying leaders and laggards by the governments. Governments use a lot of policy tools to steer the green transition, for instance, subsidies. And giving subsidies, for instance, to leaders in the sustainability field will be more difficult in the future, because you need to identify these based on data, and you also need to benchmark and compare them. Right now, particularly, is expectations on companies, shifting expectations on companies. as well as the anticipation of these expectations in the future. I talk to companies who say, we see that the pressure is building up. We see more kind of requests, for instance, from business partners. So the foresight also plays an important role here. There is, of course, the value creation element, identification of risks, identification of opportunities that kind of are linking to the value drivers that companies have. I think this is kind of a well-established argument. We shouldn't make, that's important, a universal argument out of it. No, reporting doesn't always kind of magically kind of create value. It depends a lot on how you do it, why you do it, and the context around it. There's also, I think, a communication question here. A lot of firms will go for voluntary action because whenever you apply frameworks and standards, that allows you to have a platform for talking to each other. When we did interviews, for instance, on CSRD, one of the things that we found was CSRD, in a sense, was also an organizing tool for discussions within companies. So this order that the directive created was something that companies appreciated. And I think this is also a strong argument here for voluntary reporting. And then last but not least, of course, you have the values element, living your values through, for instance, reporting due diligence on a voluntary basis. We shouldn't underestimate this.